The dashboard clock glowed 2:17 a.m. as the highway stretched out like an endless black ribbon under the moonless sky. I'd been driving for hours, the kind of drive where the white lines blur into hypnosis, and suddenly, there it was. A signpost, half swallowed by overgrown weeds, flickering in my headlights. Welcome to Elmwood, population 847. But Elmwood wasn't on my map. It shouldn't have been anywhere near this stretch of I-70, not according to the GPS that had died 20 miles back. I slowed the car, heart picking up a notch, because the turnoff wasn't just unexpected. It felt wrong, like the road had bent toward me instead of the other way around. My name is Alex Harper, and I'm just a guy from Kansas City trying to make it to Denver for a job interview. 32, single. The sort who packs light and trusts the interstate to get him where he needs to go. That night, a storm had forced me off the main route earlier than planned, rerouting me through back roads I'd never heard of. The rain had stopped, but the air hung heavy with that post-storm chill, the kind that seeps into your bones even with the heater on. I figured Elmwood was just a glitch, a forgotten dot on the map. Maybe a place to grab coffee and reset the nav on my phone. So I took the exit, tires humming over cracked asphalt that led into a tunnel of dense pines. The town unfolded slowly, like it was waking up, reluctant to show its face. Main Street, if you could call it that, was a single lane lined with faded storefronts, a hardware store with a rusted awning, a diner called Elmwood Eats, with its neon sign buzzing faintly, and a gas station that looked like it hadn't seen a customer since the 90s. No one was out walking, no cars parked haphazardly like in a living town. It was the dead hour, sure, but something about the quiet pressed in, unbroken except for the distant hum of my engine. I pulled into the gas station lot, the pumps standing like silent sentinels under a single floodlight. The attendant's booth was dark, but a bell tinkled as I stepped out, the sound echoing too sharply off the empty pumps. I filled up, the nozzle clicking louder than it should in the stillness, and glanced around. A payphone booth stood at the edge of the lot, its glass fogged and the receiver dangling like it had been left mid-conversation. Weird, but not alarming. Not yet. I paid inside, where an old man behind the counter barely looked up from his crossword. "Passing through?" he mumbled, voice like gravel. "Yeah, heading west. Phone signal's out. Mind if I use yours to call for directions?" He slid the landline over without a word, eyes flicking back to his puzzle. The line crackled to life, but when I dialed it rang endlessly into void. No connection, no operator. "Storm must have knocked lines out too," I said, hanging up. He just nodded, like it was the most normal thing. Back on the road, Elmwood's edges blurred into suburbia, neat rows of ranch-style houses with manicured lawns, porch lights glowing like watchful eyes. I needed a place to crash, just a few hours until dawn, so I followed signs to the Elmwood Motor Lodge, a low-slung motel with peeling paint and a vacancy sign that flickered like a heartbeat. The office smelled of stale coffee and mothballs. The clerk, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes, handed me a key to room 12 without much chatter. "Quiet night," she said, almost to herself. Room 12 was standard issue, twin bed with a sagging mattress, a nightstand with a lamp that buzzed when I turned it on, and a bathroom with tiles that echoed every drip from the faucet. I locked the door, drew the curtains, thin enough that headlights from the highway sliced through like knives, and collapsed onto the bed. The clock on my phone read 3:05 a.m., battery at 12%, no signal still. I closed my eyes, willing sleep to come, but the quiet was too complete. No distant traffic, no crickets chirping, just the faint creak of the building settling, or was it something else? It started small, the way these things do. A soft tap at the window like a branch brushing glass, but there were no trees that close. I sat up, peering through a slit in the curtains. The parking lot was empty, My car, the only one under the sodium lights. Probably the wind, I told myself, lying back down. But then it came again. Tap, tap. Rhythmic, insistent. I got up, heart thudding a little faster, and flicked on the exterior light switch by the door. Nothing happened. The bulb must be out. Shaking it off, I tried the TV for white noise, but the screen filled with static. Voices whispering through the snow like ghosts in a storm. I clicked it off quick. Sleep finally tugged at me around 4, fitful and shallow, dreams laced with endless roads curving into darkness. Morning light filtered in grey and diffused, like the sun was hesitant to rise. I showered fast, the water pressure weak, and as I toweled off, I noticed it. The motel keychain on the nightstand. I'd left it by the sink last night, hadn't I? No big deal. Maybe I'd bumped it in my sleep. But when I grabbed my wallet from the dresser, a receipt fluttered out, one I didn't remember. It was from the gas station. $28, $47 for unleaded, timestamped 2:17 a.m. That matched my dashboard clock fine, but the signature line at the bottom, scrawled in my handwriting or something close, was A. Harper, Elmwood resident. I stared at it, a chill crawling up my spine. Resident? I'd paid cash, hadn't signed anything. The clerk's face flashed in my mind, her nod as I left the station. Had she slipped this in? Why? I pocketed it, checked out without asking, didn't want to seem paranoid, and hit the road again, aiming for the highway back to I-70. But as I drove, the signs multiplied. Another welcome to Elmwood at the town line, identical to the first, weeds even thicker here. And in my rear view, the motel shrank. But the road behind looped strangely, houses repeating like a glitch in reality. I gripped the wheel tighter, telling myself it was fatigue, dehydration, anything but what my gut whispered. That highway hadn't led me to Elmwood by accident. It had led me here. And now, somehow, Elmwood wasn't letting go. The road out of Elmwood felt longer than it should, the asphalt unspooling under my tires like a tape rewinding in slow motion. I kept my eyes fixed ahead, ignoring the way the dashboard clock seemed to lag, stuck at 7:42 a.m., no matter how many miles clicked by on the odometer. The sun had climbed higher, casting long shadows from the pines that flanked the highway, but the light didn't warm the cab of my car. It just highlighted the dust motes dancing in the air, making everything feel suspended, unreal. I tried the radio again, twisting the dial through static bursts until a faint country station crackled in, some twangy voice singing about lost love and open roads. It was a comfort almost, until the signal faded and the announcer came on, his voice clear as if he was sitting beside me. Folks in Elmwood, keep an eye on those back roads tonight. Storm's brewing again, and you know how she likes to play tricks. Elmwood. I was miles out by now, or so I thought. The mention twisted in my gut, but I switched it off, chalking it up to bleed over from a local broadcast. These rural stations overlapped sometimes. By late morning, hunger gnawed at me, the kind that comes from too much adrenaline and not enough breakfast. I'd skipped the motel's complimentary coffee, too rattled by that receipt to linger. A sign for Milford Diner appeared up ahead, 10 miles it promised, though my mental map placed it nowhere near this route. Still, it was something familiar, a greasy spoon where I could get my bearings, maybe borrow a phone, or ask about the quickest way back to I-70. The turn-off was sharper than expected, gravel crunching as I veered onto a narrower lane that wound through fields of knee-high corn. The stalks whispering in the breeze like they were sharing secrets. The diner squatted at a crossroads, its red and white checkered sign faded but welcoming, with a handful of pickup trucks parked out front. Inside, the air smelled of bacon and fresh pie, the kind of place where locals nursed coffee from dawn till dusk. A waitress in a starched apron glanced up as the bell above the door jingled, her smile automatic but warm. Booth or counter, hun? Booth's fine, I said, sliding into a vinyl seat that stuck slightly to my jeans. The menu was laminated, edges curled, listing classics. burgers, fries, milkshakes. I ordered eggs over easy and black coffee, then pulled out my phone. Still no bars, battery dipping to 8%. The waitress, whose name tag read Doris, poured my coffee with a steady hand. Passing through, we don't get many strangers this way. Yeah, headed to Denver, got turned around last night. Storm rerouted me through Elmwood. You know it? Her paw paused for a split second, just long enough to notice before she resumed. Elmwood? Sure, it's just up the way. Quiet little spot. You staying long? I shook my head, forcing a chuckle. Nah, just a pit stop. Phone's dead out here. Mind if I use the landline after? She nodded, wiping her hands on her apron. Payphone out back works, but lines have been spotty since the weather. Holler if you need anything. The food came quick, and I ate mechanically, the eggs tasting a little too much like sulfur, the coffee bitter on my tongue. Around me, the diner hummed with low conversation, two farmers at the counter debating crop yields, a trucker in the corner scrolling a newspaper. Normal, everyday sounds that should have grounded me. But as I glanced out the window, something caught my eye. A faded postcard tacked to the bulletin board by the register, showing Main Street in what looked like Elmwood, the hardware store prominent. Below it, in neat cursive, Elmwood welcomes you home. Home. That word again, echoing the receipt. I finished my meal, left a tip, and stepped out back to the payphone. The booth was weathered, graffiti scratched into the metal. Initials, hearts, a single word repeated. Stuck. I lifted the receiver, the dial tone buzzing faintly, and punched in my sister's number in Kansas City. It rang once, twice, then clicked like someone picking up, but only silence followed, heavy and expectant. No breathing, no hang-up, just void. I tried again, same result. Frustrated, I dialed information for a tow service or highway patrol, but the line went dead midway, the receiver humming empty in my hand. Back inside, Doris was clearing my plate. No luck? Lines are out, I muttered, rubbing my temples. Any chance you've got a map, or know how to get to I-70 from here? She tilted her head, thinking. I-70? That's the big one west, right? Follow the road north about 5 miles, you'll hit the on-ramp, but watch for deer. Plenty around these parts. Her eyes lingered on me a beat too long, like she was memorizing my face. Safe travels, Mr. Harper. I froze. How'd you... Your wallet, she said, nodding at my back pocket where it peeked out. Saw the name when you paid. Logical. Sure, but the way she said it, like she'd known it before, sent a prickle across my skin. Driving north, the landscape shifted subtly, cornfields giving way to more suburbia, houses with American flags fluttering on porches, kids' bikes abandoned in driveways. But the mile markers didn't add up. I passed the same weathered barn 3 times, its red paint flaking identically each go-round. My GPS app flickered back to life briefly, showing my location as Elmwood outskirts, even though the diner was miles behind. I accelerated, the engine whining, desperate to break free. Then, in the rear view, a car appeared. An old sedan, nondescript, keeping pace a 1/4 mile back. It wasn't aggressive, just there, headlights dipping over rises like eyes watching. I slowed. It slowed. Sped up, it matched. Paranoia, I told myself, but my hands tightened on the wheel, knuckles white. The on-ramp sign loomed finally, I-70 east-west, arrow straight. Relief washed over me as I merged, the highway opening wide, semis rumbling past. But as the diner's crossroads faded in the distance, my phone buzzed, a single bar, then a text from an unknown number. Welcome home, Alex. Don't be a stranger. No sender, no reply option. I deleted it, heart pounding, and floored the gas toward Denver, the road ahead blurring once more. Elmwood's pull lingered, though, like a shadow I couldn't outrun, whispering that I'd never really left. The highway hummed beneath my tires, a steady vibration that should have lulled me into some sense of normalcy. But instead, it amplified the unease coiling in my chest. I'd been pushing west on I-70 for what felt like hours, the mile markers ticking up slowly, deliberately, as if the road itself was rationing progress. Denver was still over 200 miles out, according to the last sign I'd passed, but the landscape refused to change. Flat plains stretched endlessly, dotted with the occasional windbreak of cottonwoods, their leaves rustling like hushed conversations. No billboards, no rest areas, just the asphalt and the occasional semi-roaring by, their trailers casting fleeting shadows that danced across my dashboard. I kept the radio off now, the silence preferable to any more bleed-over broadcasts. My phone sat in the cup holder, screen dark and lifeless. Battery finally giving out around noon. The text from earlier gnawed at me, that unknown number with its casual menace. "Welcome home, Alex. Don't be a stranger." I'd tried replying once before it died. "Who is this?" But nothing. Blocked, or maybe the signal had just evaporated again. I replayed the morning in my head, Doris's knowing smile at the diner. The way she'd said my name, like it was a secret she'd been holding on to, and that postcard, pinned up like a trophy, "Elmwood welcomes you home." It all circled back to that, a loop I couldn't escape. Thirst pulled me off at the next exit, a sparse ramp leading to a lone gas station convenience store combo, the kind with pumps under a sagging canopy and a bell that jangled like an afterthought. The place was called Prairie Stop, or at least that's what the sign said, though the letters were so weathered it could have been anything. I parked and stretched, my back protesting from the hours hunched over the wheel. Inside, the air was cool and artificial, humming with the low buzz of fluorescent lights. Shelves stocked the basics: chips, sodas, beef jerky, and a cooler of sandwiches that looked a day past fresh. The clerk was a young guy, maybe early 20s, with a faded ball cap pulled low over his eyes, restocking cigarettes behind the counter. "Water and a map," I said, slapping a 5 on the counter. "And whatever's closest to a charger. My phone's toast." He nodded without looking up, grabbing a bottled water and unfolding a state road atlas from under the register. "That'll be $7.50. No chargers here, but there's a truck stop 20 miles west. They got everything." I thanked him and lingered, tracing I-70 on the map with my finger. Denver was marked clear as day, a straight shot from here. "Hey, you ever hear of Elmwood? Little town off the interstate." His hands paused on the pack of smokes just for a heartbeat. "Elmwood? Yeah, it's around. Why?" "Got stuck there last night. Weird vibes. Phone died, no signal. Figured it was the storm, but..." I trailed off, not sure what I was fishing for. He rang me up, avoiding my eyes. "Storms do that out here. Mess with everything. You from around these parts?" "Kansas City," I said, "just passing through." The map crinkled as he slid it over. "Drive safe. Roads can play tricks when you're tired." Outside, I chugged the water, the coolness doing little to settle the dryness in my throat. The pump area was empty, save for a single pickup idling at the far end. Driver obscured by tinted glass. I filled up quick, the nozzle's click echoing in the open lot, and as I replaced the cap, a faint scent hit me. Pine and damp earth, like the woods around Elmwood. But this was open prairie, miles from any trees. I shook it off, climbed back in, and merged onto the highway, the map open on the passenger seat. The next hour blurred by in fits, my mind wandering to the job interview. It was a solid gig. Marketing coordinator for a tech firm. Nothing glamorous, but steady pay in a city with real opportunities. I'd prepped for weeks, run through questions in my head during the drive. But now, every mile felt like a countdown ticking backward. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in bruised oranges and purples, and shadows lengthened across the median. I glanced at the rear view. Nothing but empty road. No sedan tailing me this time, just isolation. The kind that makes you question if you're moving at all. Then, a flicker on the horizon, taillights red and insistent, braking suddenly up ahead. I slowed, weaving into the right lane as traffic bunched, a minor fender bender, Two cars pulled over on the shoulder, hazard lights blinking. State trooper lights swirled blue nearby, but as I crept past, the scene sharpened into focus. One vehicle was a familiar old sedan, dented fender kissing the guardrail. The driver stood talking to the cop, back turned, but the posture, the slump of shoulders, itched at my memory. Not the same car from earlier, but close enough to send a jolt through me. I accelerated away, pulse quickening, and that's when the first real doubt crept in. Was I imagining connections where there were none? Fatigue from the sleepless night, the detour, the constant low-grade stress of the drive, it all piled up, making shadows into shapes, coincidences into patterns. But the map beside me contradicted that. I'd marked my route in pencil, a clean line from Elmwood's exit to here, yet the odometer read only 30 miles gained since the diner. Impossible. I'd been driving steady at 70, no stops except the gas station. I pulled over at the next overlook, a gravel pullout with a chain-link fence overlooking a dry creek bed. The engine ticked as it cooled, and I stepped out, breathing deep the cooling air. The wind picked up, carrying that same pine scent, stronger now, mingling with the faint tang of exhaust. Below, the creek twisted like a vein through the earth, and for a moment I swore I saw movement, a figure walking the bank, too far to make out details, vanishing as quickly as it appeared. Probably a trick of the light, the sun's last rays playing across the scrub. Back in the car, I unfolded the map again, double-checking. There, circled in faded ink, not my pencil, a small dot labelled Elmwood, but positioned wrong. Looping back east instead of the side route I'd taken. Handwriting matched the receipt, that looping script. A. Harper. My stomach twisted. How? I'd bought the map here, pristine. Unless... No. I slammed it shut, started the engine, and gunned it onto the highway, the speedometer climbing to 80, 90, desperate to outpace the growing certainty that Elmwood wasn't behind me. It was everywhere, seeping into the cracks of reality like fog. As dusk settled, the first stars pricked the sky, unnaturally bright, and the dashboard clock froze at 7:42 again, mocking my escape. In the distance, a sign loomed, Elmwood 5 miles. I blinked hard, but it didn't vanish. The road curved subtly, pulling me toward it, and in the rear view, those taillights reappeared, closer now, unhurried. Home, the word echoed, unbidden. Whatever this was, it knew my name, and it wasn't done with me yet. The sign for Elmwood 5 miles hung there like a taunt, its reflective letters catching the last sliver of twilight, as if to say, "See, you never left." I eased off the gas, the engine's growl softening to a hesitant purr, my eyes darting between the road ahead and the rear view where those taillights hovered, patient as a predator in the gathering dark. The highway should have been straight, unyielding I-70, but the curve it took felt deliberate, a gentle hook pulling me off course without me noticing until now. I blinked, rubbed my eyes. Maybe the dusk was playing tricks, or the exhaustion finally cracking my resolve. But the sign didn't fade, it sharpened, weeds brushing its base like fingers reaching out. I didn't turn off. Not yet. Instead, I kept driving, straight through where the on-ramp should have merged back to the interstate. But the lanes narrowed subtly, the rumble strips fading into smooth asphalt that mimicked the back road I'd taken into town that first night. The taillight stayed with me, neither closing the gap nor falling behind, just a steady presence that made the isolation of the drive feel shared, intimate. Who was in that car? The clerk from the gas station, Doris from the diner, or someone else who'd known my name before I spoke it? The thought looped in my mind, feeding the quiet panic that had settled in my gut like a stone. By full dark, the stars overhead formed unfamiliar patterns, too dense, like the sky itself was closing in. No other traffic now, just me and that shadow trailing 100 yards back. My headlights carved tunnels through the blackness, illuminating fleeting glimpses of the roadside. A rusted fence post here, a forgotten mailbox there, each one echoing Elmwood's edges. The air through the cracked window carried that pine scent again, sharp and insistent, mingling with the leather of my seat. I tried to focus on the road, on Denver, on the interview waiting like a lifeline, but my thoughts kept drifting to the map in the passenger seat, its circled dot mocking me. How had my handwriting ended up there? I'd bought it fresh, handled it only to trace my route, unless I'd blacked out, sleepwalked through some moment I couldn't recall. The idea chilled me more than the night air. Hunger hit again, sharper this time, a reminder that I'd barely eaten since the diner. A neon glow flickered up ahead, a roadside stand, the kind that pops up in these parts selling hot dogs and sodas to late-night wanderers. Elmwood Outpost, the sign read, buzzing faintly as I pulled into the gravel lot. The taillights slowed but didn't stop, cruising past on the highway before vanishing around a bend. Relief mixed with dread. At least I was alone now, but the solitude amplified the quiet, broken only by the crunch of my shoes on the stones. The stand was little more than a shack with a serving window, lit from within by a single bulb swinging on a cord. A woman stood behind the counter, wiping down the surface with a rag, her face half-shadowed. She looked up as I approached, her expression neutral, almost expectant. "Evening," she said, voice carrying that flat Midwest drawl. "What can I get you?" "Coffee if it's hot, and a sandwich, whatever's quick." I leaned on the sill, scanning the menu scrawled on a chalkboard. Basics, nothing fancy. My stomach growled audibly, betraying the hours since breakfast. She nodded, pouring from a percolator that gurgled softly. "Passing through, it's late for these roads." "Yeah, trying to make Denver. Got detoured last night. Elmwood, you know it." Her rag paused mid-wipe, eyes flicking to mine before resuming. "Elmwood's close. Folks come and go. You look like you've been on the road a while." I forced a smile, handing over a crumpled 10. "Longer than planned. Phone's dead, no GPS. These highways all look the same after dark." She made change slowly, coins clinking into my palm. "They do, don't they? Sometimes you end up where you started without knowing." Her words hung there, casual but weighted, and as she slid the coffee across, I noticed her name tag, pinned crookedly, reading Harper. Not her last name. Mine. My breath caught, but she turned away before I could question it, busying herself with the grill. I retreated to a picnic table nearby. The wood splintered under my elbows, sipping the coffee that burned going down. It was bitter, overbrewed, but the warmth spread through me, grounding for a moment. The highway stretched empty in both directions, no sign of the taillights returning. Overhead, the stars wheeled slowly, and a faint wind stirred the gravel, carrying whispers that might have been leaves or something else. I unwrapped the sandwich, ham and cheese on white, simple, and bit in the flavors bland like eating cardboard. But halfway through, a detail snagged, the wrapper. Printed on it, in small type, was Elmwood Outpost, serving locals since '87. Locals. That word again, tying back to the receipt, the text, Doris's gaze. Finishing quick, I tossed the trash and headed back to the car. But the woman called out from the window, "Hey, mister, left your map." She held it up, the state atlas I'd marked, its cover creased just so. I didn't... But there it was, in my hand as I took it, the weight familiar. Had I dropped it without noticing? Possible, in my haste. But inside, the circled Elmwood had grown, the ink bleeding slightly, as if freshly drawn. And beside it, in that same looping script, "Stay a while, Alex. Roads lead home." I didn't respond, just nodded thanks and slid into the driver's seat, locking the doors with a click that echoed too loudly. The engine roared to life, and I peeled out, gravel spraying, aiming west, or what I hoped was west. The taillights reappeared almost immediately in the mirror, closer now, like they'd been waiting just out of sight. No aggression, just persistence, a companion I hadn't invited. The drive blurred into a haze of headlights and shadows, the dashboard clock still frozen at 7:42, mocking the passage of time. I passed no exits, no signs for Denver, only subtle markers, a faded billboard for Elmwood real estate, a mile marker etched with Loop 1. My mind raced, piecing together fragments, the payphone silences, the repeated barns, the way everyone seemed to know me without knowing. Was this a dream? Some breakdown from stress, manifesting Elmwood as a prison of my own making? But the sandwich sat heavy in my stomach, the coffee's burn lingering on my tongue, too real for illusion. Then a new sign loomed: Elmwood city limits, 0 miles. The taillights matched my speed now, close enough that I could make out the sedan's shape in the glow, an older model, like the one from the fender bender. I slowed, heart hammering, and watched as it pulled alongside, window down. The driver turned, face illuminated briefly. Not the clerk, not Doris, but a version of myself, 32, tired eyes, stubble shadowing my jaw. He, or it, smiled faintly, nodded once, then accelerated ahead, vanishing into the curve. I slammed on the brakes, tires screeching, coming to a stop on the shoulder. The highway emptied around me, silent as a held breath. In the mirror, my own face stared back, pale and strained, but for a split second it shifted, eyes not quite mine, mouth curving in that same knowing smile. I touched my cheek, felt the warmth of skin, the pulse in my neck, real. But the road ahead curved back toward town lights, twinkling in the distance, and the pine scent flooded the car, thick as fog. Home, the whisper came again. From nowhere and everywhere. I gripped the wheel, breath shallow, realizing with a sickening clarity that the highway hadn't led me to Elmwood. It had led Elmwood to me, wrapping around my life like a vine, pulling tighter with every mile I thought I'd gained. And now turning back wasn't an option. There was only forward, into the loop, where every face was a reflection, every sign a welcome I couldn't refuse. The shoulder gravel crunched under my tires as I sat there, engine idling like a hesitant heartbeat, the night pressing in from all sides. That face in the sedan, mine, but not mine, lingered in my mind's eye, the smile too practiced, too knowing, as if it had seen this moment coming long before I had. I exhaled slowly, fogging the windshield, and wiped my face with a trembling hand. The reflection in the rear view steadied, just me again. Alex Harper, 32 and fraying at the edges, eyes hollow from the endless drive. But the doubt had rooted deep now, twisting through every rational thought. Was that a hallucination, a trick of the headlights on glass, or something worse, a glimpse of what Elmwood had become, a mirror held up to my unraveling sense of self? I shifted into drive, the car lurching forward before I could second-guess it. No turning back, the road behind was as swallowed by darkness as the one ahead. The taillights of the sedan had vanished, but their absence felt like a lure, pulling me deeper into the curve toward those distant town lights. Elmwood city limits, the sign had said, but it wasn't a border anymore. It was a threshold I'd crossed without realizing, the highway folding in on itself like a Mobius strip. My hands gripped the wheel at 10 and 2, knuckles aching. As I crested the rise, the pines reappeared first, flanking the lane like old sentinels, their needles whispering in the wind that buffeted the car. Then the first familiar landmark, the gas station, its floodlight humming faintly, the payphone booth standing crooked with the receiver still dangling. No. I slowed, pulse quickening, but the lot was empty, just as I'd left it, or arrived in it, hours, days ago. The dashboard clock mocked me at 7:42, eternal and unchanging. I didn't stop this time. Accelerating past felt like the only defiance left, a small rebellion against the pull. But as Main Street unfolded, the storefronts glowed with that same reluctant light. Elmwood Eats neon buzzing, the hardware store's awning rusted in exactly the same spot. A single car idled at the curb, a pickup, not the sedan, but the driver didn't glance my way. I drove on, past the suburban edges, the ranch houses with their porch lights like unblinking eyes, lawns manicured to perfection under the moonless sky. The motel loomed next, Elmwood Motor Lodge, vacancy sign flickering in rhythm with my breathing. Room 12 called to me, or at least the pull did, an invisible tether urging me to park and step inside, to sink into that sagging bed and let the taps at the window lull me back to sleep. But I resisted, veering past toward the highway's illusion of escape. The road looped again, subtly at first, a slight bend where there shouldn't be one, until the pines thickened and the mile markers reset to 0. Elmwood outskirts, the diner, the outpost, all of it replaying in seamless succession, the details sharpening with each pass. Doris's pause at my name, the clerk's averted eyes, the woman's crooked name tag reading Harper. By the third loop, or was it the fourth? The weight of it settled, not as fear, but as a quiet resignation, the kind that comes when you've run every scenario and found no exit. I pulled over at the overlook again, the dry creek bed below, reflecting the stars in its cracked surface. Stepping out, the air was thick with pine and that underlying chill, the wind carrying faint echoes. A bell tinkling from the gas station, a percolator gurgling from the outpost. I leaned against the hood, staring at the map crumpled in my fist. The circled dot had spread, ink bleeding across the page like veins covering I-70. Denver, even Kansas City. In the center, my handwriting looped endlessly. Home is where the road leads. That's when the understanding hit, not with a crash, but a slow seep, like water eroding stone. Elmwood wasn't a place. It was a state, a fracture in the ordinary where the routine of my life, the drive, the job hunt, the solitude, had bent under some unseen pressure. The storm hadn't rerouted me. I'd rerouted myself, chasing a path that mirrored the emptiness I'd been running from. The faces, the signs, the repeated welcomes, they weren't threats or tricks. They were reflections, pieces of me scattered along the highway, calling back because I'd never truly left. The sedan driver, the name tags, the text, all echoes of Alex Harper, the resident who'd signed that receipt without knowing, who'd always been here, looping through the motions of escape. I folded the map, pocketed it, and slid back into the car. No panic now, just a hollow calm, the kind that settles after staring too long into an abyss and seeing your own face staring back. The engine turned over smoothly, headlights piercing the dark as I merged onto the road once more. The taillights appeared ahead this time, leading rather than following, red orbs guiding me toward the next curve. I followed, unhurried, the pines parting to reveal Main Street again, the diner light spilling warm onto the pavement. Hours blurred, or minutes. Time had lost its grip, but the loops softened, the repetitions blending into a rhythm almost soothing. At the gas station, the old man looked up from his crossword, nodding as if we'd spoken yesterday. "Back again?" he said, voice gravelly but familiar now. "Yeah," I replied, signing the receipt without hesitation. A. Harper, Elmwood resident. The pen felt right in my hand, the script flowing easy. At the diner, Doris poured coffee without asking, her smile less guarded. "Rough night on the road?" I nodded, sipping the bitter brew. Getting there. The motel room welcomed me with its drip and buzz, the keychain waiting by the sink. I lay on the bed, curtains drawn against the headlights that sliced through anyway, and listened to the taps at the window, branches or fingers or nothing at all. Sleep came easier this time. Dreams of endless highways curving home, morning, or what passed for it, broke grey and diffused. The clock on my phone, long dead but unnecessary now. I checked out, the clerk's tired eyes meeting mine with quiet recognition. "Safe travels, Mr. Harper." The highway unspooled ahead, straight and inviting, leading west toward Denver. But as I drove, the signpost flickered in the rear view, "Welcome to Elmwood. Population 848. One more, added like a tally mark. The tail lights faded into the distance, but I knew they'd return, patient as ever. Home wasn't a destination, it was the drive itself, the quiet insistence that some roads circle back, wrapping you in their embrace until you stop fighting and lean in. And in the quiet spaces between mile markers, I felt it, not trapped, but found, in a place that had always known my name.